Hello everyone, welcome to What's Missing. Today we'll be talking about Rizza Islam and why he believes that African Americans should not take the COVID vaccine. Now, on a personal note, I believe that these pharmaceutical companies cannot be trusted. Private enterprise has a long history of abusing its customers and doing whatever it takes to make money. That said, we also have to acknowledge that vaccination is the best way to combat a global pandemic like COVID. So, without further ado, let's take a look at what Rizza thinks.
So vaccines came into existence in Europe due to the bad and poor hygiene and poor health of the Caucasian Europeans. It had nothing to do with the original people. It's because they did not know how to bathe. They did not know how to handle their body or to manage handling sicknesses and viruses and bacteria. They didn't know about that. We taught them how to bathe. We brought in medicine. All the way back in the 700s or 710, we brought these things to them to help them to learn about what this is, what this bacteria is, what is this? That's a virus. Let me help you to fix that. We taught them about alcohol or alcohol, with using it as an astringent on the outer layer of the skin to get rid of certain bacteria, viruses, etc. That was what they were doing with Jenner and different individuals. There were white men experimenting on their own children, and particularly where the smallpox vaccine comes into action. And many of the people who were given those vaccines at the time died, but they took that as a successful method with which to utilize to help to get rid of diseases and viruses. That doesn't work. You're telling me that a vaccine, which is a weakened or dead strain of a virus, injected into the body in order to stimulate the body's immune response or the body's natural defense mechanism. That's what a vaccine is. But why am I vaccinating rather than immunizing? Immunizing is not the same as vaccinating. Immunizing is letting nature take over so that when the body comes into action or into contact with a virus, whether if we're breathing it in through the air, whether if we are eating it because it's in some of the food or the liquid that we're drinking, our body has the natural defense. It detects it and it fights it until it gets it out. The body will heat up or, go into a fever type of response to burn away or to kill the virus. That's when our body's actually raising in temperature. It's detecting something that is an unwanted pathogen or a foreign agent coming in. So it's trying to get it out. Our body is very scientific. The body is the most scientific, perfectly scientific machine that was ever created by the creator. And so the vaccine system was for the European. It was not for the original man or woman. We taught them about health. We taught them about clothing. We taught them about all of this. So the first thing we have to do is stop adopting things that don't belong to us. Rather than taking a vaccine, I'd eat an orange or pineapple or soursop. I'd eat these fruits. I'd eat vegetables. I take certain herbs. I do steaming to get rid of the unneeded mucus. That helps to keep the virus going. These are the things that we do as the original people. This is why we live so long.
Okay, so there is a lot to unpack here. Rizza believes that native Africans, or as he said, the original people, had taught Europeans how to bathe and how to treat their injuries with alcohol. He gave a general time period somewhere in the 700s AD. Now, this period is very specific when it comes to European history because in the 700s, a North African people called the Moors had decided on invading Spain, claiming it as their own. Now, the Moors were an advanced, intelligent people, known for their bathhouses, distinct culture, and a propensity for science. The Moors were not the first to construct bathhouses, though, drawing much of their inspiration from the Roman bathhouse, the first of which constructed around 100 AD. Now, the Romans had conquered almost all of Europe at one point, building bathhouses everywhere they went. This tells me that not only did the Romans inspire the Moorish bathhouse, but Europeans had used these structures long before the Moors had arrived. With that said, though, the Romans did not invent the bathhouse either. No one knows where they came from, the earliest having been discovered in modern-day Pakistan, dating back to the 2500s BC. So not only are bathhouses an ancient concept, but evidence shows that bathing has been a common practice in every continent for thousands of years. The Moors did not teach Europeans about alcohol either. Alcohol has been a common, essential form of treatment in every part of the world for the last 10,000 years. This disconnect between Rizza and the evidence is very concerning to me. Instead of explaining history in an honest way, he chooses to manipulate it in support of an Afrocentric worldview. It's easy for him to sit in his car and claim that Europeans were just too stupid to bathe properly. Yet, in doing so, he misrepresents what Europe was like before the 18th century. Europeans knew how to bathe, but only the richest among them could afford to do so. This is because, by the 1500s, Europe was suffering from an extreme level of man-made deforestation. For hundreds of years, firewood became a luxury good, which meant the common people could not afford to heat their bathwater. Especially during winter, heat is essential to bathing, resulting in many families staying dirty until the warm season. The rich, on the other hand, had no such problem, spending exorbitant amounts of money on firewood. This issue of resource scarcity is a problem in all parts of the world, no matter the century. The poor, especially in rural areas, tend to have limited access to clean water, heat, and non-essential goods like soap. Rizza can say Europeans were just stupid all he wants. But despite his feelings, European hygiene did get better in the 19th century, which is the same period that the first vaccine was invented. So, no, the vaccine was not a response to a lack of hygiene. It was actually an improvement upon a more basic form of immunization, called inoculation. Inoculation required pus from an infected blister being placed in a patient's open wound. In most cases, this would result in a more mild infection while still immunizing the patient. I'm sure this method seems primitive today, but inoculation absolutely proved effective in reducing the number of deaths from smallpox. Doing nothing, or just bathing and eating well, does not provide immunity like inoculation or a vaccine would. Now don't get me wrong, bathing absolutely helps the skin protect your body, and a good diet builds a strong immune system. There is still, however, a higher risk of dying from a natural infection than dying from a vaccine-induced infection, no matter how healthy you are. Additionally, we need to think about the people who cannot rely on hygiene and a good diet. Lots of people cannot afford to buy fruits and vegetables, and many of us don't have access to clean water. Additionally, many people have compromised immune systems. No matter how many oranges they eat or how many baths they take, their body is still compromised and far more likely to die from infection. This is why herd immunity is so important, and it's the main reason I believe that anyone physically able to take a vaccine has a responsibility to do so. There is, of course, the risk of a vaccine having fatal consequences. I can only imagine how horrible it would be to lose your child or a family member to a medical product that was supposed to protect them. That said, without a vaccine, and without its predecessor, inoculation, countless more people would have died from smallpox. While vaccines can have fatal consequences, they are much safer than running the risk of a natural infection. Even people who recover from COVID, many of them have experienced permanent nerve damage and lifelong physical impairment. A vaccine will reduce these negative consequences, while also protecting those who can't take it. Pretending that black people have nothing to gain from a vaccine will not solve the problems we are dealing with. COVID has already killed 1.6 million people, more than any pandemic in the last 4 decades.